excited to have you join me again today for another fun and easy crochet project. This has a knit look fabric, which I'm absolutely loving. It's super stretchy, super flexible, and this cardigan is really fun to work up with a very simplistic construction. So we'll first be creating the body of it as one piece, and then we'll move on to the sleeves. For this pattern, I'm using the Valley Superwash DK. This is Valley Yarns by Webb's, the American yarn store. This is super squishy. It's 100% extra fine superwash merino wool. Great for this project for superwash because a lot of times, I know if you're like me, you tend to just throw on cardigans constantly. And especially something neutral toned like this. This color is sand. It's so pretty. I know I'm going to be wearing this a lot, so it's nice to have it be superwash so it's easier to maintain and take care of, especially for those staple garments. Today you will also be needing a size K 6.5 millimeter hook. We'll be using this throughout the pattern, including the bottom ribbing as we go. And then you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle to weave in those ends, and stitch markers are never a bad idea to mark the edges of our rows. So let's go ahead and we're going to talk about the stitches for this, and then we'll talk about sizing. Now we're going to talk about the pattern stitch repeat for this cardigan. I have chained a total of 31 stitches. I'll be working 30 stitches as a sample. I'm not going to be able to show the entire length of this on camera because for the size small, we want this to be 196 stitches, which means if we're doing the chain one on the edges, it would be 197 chains, and then we'll work 196 stitches into those chains. So I'm going to be showing you with a small sample. I've chained 31, so I've got my turning chain plus 30 stitches. And we're going to go through 3 rows on this. So for this first row, it's really simple. We're simply going to half double crochet into each stitch across. So we're half double crocheting 30 stitches. All right, now that I've half double crocheted my first row, it's time to turn, and we will be working row 2. So row 2 and 3 coming up here are the 2 row repeats that will create this beautiful textured stitch pattern. So I'm going to chain 1. You can do chain 1s or you can do stacked single crochets on the edges, whichever you prefer. And I'm going to start by doing half double crochets into the first 10 stitches in the back loop only. What this is going to do is create a ribbed look on the bottom of this cardigan. So we're going to do half double crochets in the back loop only for the first 10 stitches. And then no matter what your stitch count is for the size that you're doing, for size small, the whole stitch count will be 196 stitches. But no matter what size you're doing, the next step is to double crochet in the back loop only until you reach the last 10 stitches. So we're simply going to double crochet in the back loop only until we reach the last 10 stitches. Now for row 3, which for row 3, it is the wrong side of the fabric that is facing us. And I've gone ahead and done the first 10 stitches. The first 10 stitches are a half double crochet into the back loop only. You can start your row by chaining 1 or doing a stacked single crochet. It's up to you, but you'll half double crochet 10 in the back loop only. And then we're going to be working our center stitches. And then when we get to the other side, we will once again half double crochet in the back loop only for the last 10 stitches. So for every row, you start and end with half double crocheting in the back loop only for 10 stitches. So the stitch we're going to be working next is quite a unique one. When we look at the construction of a stitch, on the top we have the V, and if we're working in the round, this will be on the other side of work from us. But since we're working in rows, we have something called the third loop. It is facing us with the way that we're going to be working this. So the third loop is a loop that, whoop, there went my pointer. This is the third loop right here. So you have your V, and the third loop is facing us right here, and that's what we're going to be working in across here in half double crochet stitches. So I'm going to insert my hook into that third loop, just the third loop, and don't split your yarn like I just did, and then complete the half double crochet stitch. So into that third loop only and half double crochet. We'll be working that across until the last 10 stitches. And you'll see what this does on the other side of our work to make a beautiful knit look, even though this is crochet. All right, now that I'm at the end of the row, let's turn and see what's happening here. So we can tell where our stitch, our main body stitch pattern is going to be and what it looks like. And then we've got our ribbed on the ends. This is what's going to be really pretty and will show on the front of our work. So let me grab my sample here. So I've got my sample here and it's going to be very long. You're going to be making a very, very long panel, which is why it's so many stitches, but this is the back and then also the front sides of our body. So this is all worked as one piece, but it is very easy to do in rows. So now you can see this texture that happens on the front with that 2-row repeat. And then these are our half double crochet stitches in the back loops only that end up being on each side. So if you look at the schematic in this pattern, you'll see that this is one big long rectangle with a slit in the center part of it. This is where our head will go. So what we will need to do though is we need to make this first section here using that stitch pattern, and then we'll continue on from there to create this big piece. So let's keep on going. Now that we have the base foundation for knowing what this stitch is and how it's worked, now we can get started on working our larger piece. So for the size small, I have done a total of 23 rows, ending on a right side row of double crochet stitches, still doing those edge ribbing look stitches. And now it's time for us to take this long rectangle, which by the way, I think would make a beautiful scarf, and split it. We're going to divide for the opening for the front because we want to leave the back solid and the front open. So I'll turn at the end of this row and I will have a wrong side facing me. This is the side that we work the half double crochet into the third loop. So we will be working that stitch, but only for half of them. So we'll work our first 10 in the half double crochet in the back loops only. And then we will be working a total of 88 stitches in the half double crochet in the third loop. And then we're going to be doing some chains. So I'm going to work the first 10 plus 88 stitches and then come on back. So now that I have worked 98 stitches from this edge and I have 98 stitches left in the row, it's time to do some chaining. We're going to be chaining a total of 98 stitches, so half the stitches across here, and then turning. So for the rest of this row, we're simply working 98 chains. So now that I have chained the 98 stitches, we are going to go ahead and turn this long thing. I like this construction. We're just working long rows, and when we get done with this section, we'll have the front and the back already done. So now that I have turned, we are on our double crochet row where we'll start the first 10 stitches in the half double crochet to make this edging, and then we'll be working the rest of it in the double crochet in the back loop only. Now we have these chains which we will be working, and so the first time we work into these chains, of course, we don't necessarily have the built up stitch pattern, so we're simply double crocheting across. So for this first row, we'll start by doing a stacked single crochet right into that first stitch. Go ahead and mark that first stitch, especially for this part, so you know when you work your way back, exactly where you need to work your way back to. And then half double crochet in the next 9. So we got those first 10 stitches in that half double crochet. And then in the remaining stitches for this row, we will be working double crochets until we get to the last 10. So I'm simply going to be working double crochet stitches across until I get to the point where I can start working those double crochet stitches in the back loop only in that stitch pattern. And now that I'm back to this point, I'll start double crocheting into that back loop only and until the last 10 stitches where we will half double crochet into the back loop only. So what we will do next, you see this opening, this is going to be the opening for the front of this cardigan. And now we're going to be working this section all the way across until this side is the same amount of rows as this side. So you'll continue to work this second panel side all the way through the back, which will remain solid, and work the same amount of rows as we did for this first section, and then come on back. So for this next step, we're going to be making 2 sleeves. I've already made one. You'll notice that when we create this fabric, it can slightly slant. Don't worry about that too much because we're going to be doing some blocking after we get our sleeves attached. So we will be making 2 of these and then stitching them to the body. So let's go ahead and we're going to talk about making the sleeve. So for this size, I have chained 53 chains, and we're going to start by working in the second chain from the hook, and we're going to be doing a single crochet. So for the first 10 stitches, we will be doing single crochet stitches. Now after doing 10 single crochet stitches in the first 10, now we're going to be doing half double crochet stitches for this rest of this row. So at the end of row 1 for the sleeve, we have 10 single crochet stitches and 42 half double crochet stitches for a total of 52 stitches. Now we are going to turn our work, chain 1, and we will be doing double crochet stitches into the back loops only. We're going to do these for 42 stitches or until the last 10. So double crochet in the back loop only for 42 stitches or until you get to the last 10 stitches. Now that I've double crocheted in the back loop only to the last 10 stitches, the last 10 stitches will be worked in the back loop only as well, but single crochet stitches. What it does is it will create that cuff by working these in the single crochet stitches that looks ribbed, but it's much tighter than what we were doing on the body in terms of making that ribbed look. So we will single crochet in the back loop only for the last 10 stitches. And now we will turn our work again. And for this row, you'll start to notice the pattern repeat that we were using for the body. I'm going to chain 1, and in the first 10 stitches, single crochet in the back loop only. And now we're going to be working that half double crochet in the third loop that's facing us. So on our very next stitch, we will do a half double crochet into that third loop that's facing us, and we will complete the rest of the stitches in this row in that half double crochet in the third loop that's facing us. And then that is our repeat for this sleeve. So the double crochet row and then this half double crochet row with doing this single crochet ribbing only on one side is what we will be using to create this sleeve. You can see as it gets worked up here, this is the ribbing. This is the side where it was a half double crochet in the third loop, and this is the right side where this is where we did the double crochet in the back loop only. Once you have created the sleeve, which will be 26 rows for this size, so you're going to keep going in that pattern repeat for 26 total rows. It will be time to block this to kind of get out some of those seams. And when you get to the point where you've made 26 rows for each sleeve, you can fasten off, but leave a long tail end because we're going to use that tail end to stitch it to the body of our cardigan. Now it's time to block our project. And I know sometimes blocking can feel confusing or overwhelming, or how do we do it? So I wanted to show you the sleeves that I have currently blocking and what blocking can look like and the different ways to do so. For this project, it is very important that you block it. The fabric kind of has a little bit of a lean, and we do want to open up those stitches and increase that drape. So let's take a look. So these are the sleeves sitting on my desk on some blocking mats. I have these really nice blocking pins that go quite a bit faster because they're pins within a piece of plastic, and I can stab 4 or even 8 at once. It does make it quickly, but you can also use the same type of pins you use for sewing and just pin them down. These foam mats, you can even use like the foam mats that you can find in the baby section sometimes at certain stores. But notice how I've really opened these stitches, as well as allowed these ribbing stitches to remain tight in here. So when we were creating this, we didn't quite see this shape until we blocked it this shape. This is dry, but all I did was put it on here and block it to the dimensions of the sleeve, and then I just sprayed it down with water and I let it sit. And you'll notice that that blocking will really help the drape, helps the edges, and that way when we go to seam things together, it's easier because all the edges are nice and crisp. So the same way that I block these sleeves is exactly how I blocked the body. I just took it in one long strip and I blocked it long. Now, if you don't have enough blocking mats or pins to do this, you can always use a towel or a beach towel and lay it across the floor or even your bed and wet block it and set it into place as best as possible. Now, the other option is to pin it into place and then steam block it very gently. You don't want to straight up iron it. You just want to steam block it, and that also helps hold that shape better, and it just gives us nicer lines, nicer edges, gets rid of any leaning, and then we're ready to take all of our pieces and hand stitch them together. You won't feel as frustrated if it's blocked, and have a nice crisp piece when we're done. Now, after I aggressively block the way I just showed you, and I have my item done and I wear it and then I wash it again, I don't tend to use pins and block it that way. It's just usually not as necessary unless something's happened to your fabric that you really want to set it back in place. I simply do, a gentle no rinse wash in the sink when it comes to wool, and then I will lay it out on a towel on my bed, just set it in place almost as if you were going to get ready to fold it, but you wanted to get everything nice in place, and I just let it dry, and that's it. And then it's ready to wear again, and it looks really nice. Let's talk about putting this item together. Now that we have all of our pieces made, we have our body and we have our 2 sleeves, it's time to put the sleeves onto the body. I've laid out my body the same way it looks on the schematic in the pattern. So you just want to follow the shape of that schematic for this next part and place your sleeves the way it's showing in that images. Now what I like to do is I like to find center of each side. So my body is laid out the long way here, and this is the front opening for our neck. This is the front opening of the cardigan. And I found the center stitch and I've marked it. So I marked the center stitch along this side. Then I want to get my tape measure, and for the size small, we are going about 12 inches in width for this sleeve. So I have in the instructions how many inches you need to account for. So you grab your tape measure, measure out the amount, the length you need, and then mark either side. So I've got my center, I've measured out, I've got 12 inches total, and I've marked each side of that 12 inches. So now I can grab my tapestry needle and I can stitch my sleeve to the body right here. So your cuff is still down here lower, the cuff stays lower. We're doing it along the side of the open edge of the sleeve, and we're going to grab our tapestry needle and stitch it on here. Now I'm going to tell you a secret for stitching. When you look at your stitches, whether it's on the wrong side of your ending or the right side. So I'm going to pull this over. I started stitching this one so you could see that I have been stitching kind of underneath so that these top V's kind of pop across. So let me show you. I'm grabbing yarn from behind these stitches to seam it. So you could use the 3rd loop or just anything just underneath your stitch to whip stitch slightly over that edge. That way we have a nice edge for that seaming. So go seam both sides and then come on back. Now we're going to talk about seaming the rest of this together. So I have this laid out. I'm going to try to show this on camera here. It's quite a large piece, but I've taken this and I've folded it over. So here's the front opening, and then I have my sleeves that are sewn on the sides here, and I've simply just folded it down. So I've folded my sleeves in half and I've folded the body in half, and now it looks like a cardigan, which is awesome. So the next steps that we'll be doing is we'll be taking our yarn needle and we'll be grabbing our sleeves, and we're going to start from our sleeves. So we're going to start with our sleeves underneath here at the cuff, and we're going to seam down the sides. So we're going to seam down the sleeve into the armpit area and then down the side of the cardigan. However, if you would like, you can stop. I like to stop to leave a side slit. If you don't want to, you can seam all the way down. But if you are leaving a side split on each side, I would go ahead and count how many stitches you want to do on each side, and then go ahead and mark those together so you know where to stop and it's equal on each side. So grab your yarn needle, do some seaming. We're going to seam from the cuff to the armpit and down on each side. And once you do that, you'll be able to throw this on and wear it. Now, after getting all of your seaming done, you are ready to wear this. I love the edges of the stitch. I don't think it requires any type of stitching on the edges. They're perfect, nice edges. I left mine with a slit in the bottom, which I absolutely am adoring. My most favorite thing about this cardigan is the yarn. So this yarn has so much softness and drape. You can see it through the lens. It is so nice to wear. This is great for spring, for an extra layer in the fall or winter, or even just around the house when you're lounging, watching a movie. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoy this cardigan and come back soon for more fun projects.